on this particular topic of trans issues, is that the reason you were banned from Twitch?
I'm not sure. I don't know. They just said hate speech, but I don't use like slurs or anything, so it's hard to know exactly.
So I think you made the claim that trans women shouldn't compete with cis women in women's athletics. Can you make this case, and can you steelman the case against it? I think in your community, there's a lot of trans folks who love you, and there's a lot who hate you.
Yeah.
And so if you can walk the tightrope of this conversation to try to steelman both sides.
One of the argumentative strategies I say is that like anytime you have a conversation, you should be able to argue both sides better than anybody else, you know? So for the my side, the genuine belief side, it feels like overwhelmingly all of the data is showing that we'll say trans women, even after I think 3 years on some sort of like HRT or, you know, estrogen stuff, they're still maintaining these advantages from their male puberty over cisgender women. And if that is the case, if we are going to draw these distinctions around our sports between women and men, it feels unfair to have a category inside the women's sports that are maintaining advantages that are coming from a male puberty, regardless of the amount of time they've spent on hormone replacement therapy. So that would be my argument on that side.
So it's unfair from a performance enhancement aspect. So the same way we ban performance enhancing drugs that involve increasing of testosterone, in that same way would be unfair.
Essentially, yeah.
So what's the case against?
So the case in favor of them competing together is that realistically, there's not going to be a trans sports category. Realistically, trans women aren't going to be competitive with cis men because they've gone through these huge, like hormone changes by the medication they're taking. And that when we look at how sports are kind of done anyway, there's a whole bunch of biological differences between people within sports categories that are determining their placement in the professional world. So for instance, somebody like me is probably never going to go far in the NBA because I'm not tall enough. I think the average height in the NBA...
Don't doubt yourself.
Don't doubt myself, yeah. I want to say it's like 6'6" or something. They're huge people. Or, you know, you look at like Michael Phelps is a classic example of a guy whose torso is like so long. His body is built for swimming. And I think there are some trans people that will look at that, or somebody advocating for this position. They'll look at that and they'll go, okay, realistically, the way that Michael Phelps' body processes lactic acid, the shape physiologically of his body is going to put him in a level of competition that so many men are never going to reach just because of biology. How is it fair that you can have these biological outliers competing in these categories, but then when we come to like sports categories with trans and cis women, you're going to take trans women and say that they can't compete against cis women. Can't you also just say that they have some level of biological difference there? Like, is it really going to be that great of a difference than what Michael Phelps has versus the average swimmer, or an NBA player has versus like the average height male?